Yes, what Harsh Reality is stating about us getting threatening emails is a fact. But what I want to talk about right now is the Consalvases getting threatened. Why? Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. As I mentioned, the stuff that Harsh has been talking about when it comes to these emails is true. I don't know as much about the emails as he does because I've only received two. One last week and one conveniently last night. Neither one of the ones that I received contained the names of any of the victims, is from what I can remember, because I've blocked those people. So it was very like vague. It was more like disrespecting our community, and it didn't mention anything about Dylan and Bethany. Now, I blocked the emails. I didn't converse with those people because I have real life to deal with. But it sounds like Harsh might have actually emailed them back and forth. And if it has to do with Dylan and Bethany, then I don't really, care. I'm going to keep asking questions because that 8-hour delay in calling 911 when everything that the cops are telling us is letting the public know that there was activity between the two roommates within a 5-minute time frame from the 425 and the 420. Because remember, at 420, they're telling us that the suspect's vehicle left the neighborhood, but they didn't end the time of the crime until 425 based on the roommate's phone activity. That's important if they were aware that there was a situation and still refused to call 911 for some reason or another. And it can't be she just heard noises and didn't think anything of it, and she was in a frozen shock phase. It doesn't work that way. So if people have problems with the questions that me and who knows how many other hundreds, if not thousands of creators and their audiences are asking when it comes to that delay, take it up with the cops because they're the ones pushing out the information that makes us ask these questions. And I'm not giving that whole situation, the emails or anything else, any more power because I just honestly don't care. I'm not one of these people that's coming out here talking about how the girls were, part of this little situation or how they were rug dealers or anything like that. I've been trying to combat all of that crazy insanity. So I honestly just don't, I have other real more important things to care about than this boo-boo that keeps popping up in my damn inbox. But what I want to talk about is the conversation that Harsh Reality had with Steve Consalvis. Now, Steve is not claiming that the conversation didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you, or you can just go down to Harsh's video. Most of you guys have probably already known all about this situation because I know that a lot of you are here from Harsh's channel. But he's acting as if Harsh misinterpreted something and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. That's between them. I don't feel like he did. I don't really recall exactly the way that Harsh presented the information, but you could read the text messages. He didn't try to hide the conversation. He didn't just come out with, a bunch of words and no receipts. He showed the actual texts. And then today he showed it where in the messenger it's open and it's scrolling. So it's a real conversation. And in the post that Steve apparently put, he's not claiming that the conversation didn't happen, but he's trying to backtrack, which is something that we know that Steve does a lot. And there's even people in the comments making comments about the fact that Steve comes out and says stuff and then backtracks because it gets questioned. And honestly, at this point, I don't know why he's even replying to people. I'm glad he responded back to Harsh, but I don't know what was the point in responding back to Harsh if you were just going to try to backtrack on everything that you said. And, on a personal note, and you guys might feel however you want to feel about this, I don't understand sitting there and talking trash about someone like Harsh, but then you can sit there and smile in a fucking photo with somebody like JLR. Sorry, not sorry. That shit makes no sense. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about here, because this is what's really interesting me. I don't understand why the Consalvis family would be being threatened, period. Because, Kaylee's not the only person who lost her life, right? There's 4 victims, 4 families, okay? So why the Consalvises would be getting threatened by anyone is extremely confusing when it comes to, suspect pool-wise, right? Because before Bryan Kohberger's arrest, we were basically told there was no suspects. They really kind of didn't even know what the hell they were looking for. They had, sort of a car description, but as we all know, that was all boo-boo and incorrect. They never once showed us anything. They never came out with any footage from a ring cam, from a traffic cam, nothing. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the car from 7-Eleven. The cops never came out and verified that. That was Brian Enton and Brian Enton only. Just like the whole thing about how was anybody else arrested was also Brian Enton and Brian Enton only. Just saying. But as you can see right here, and this is the video that Harsh posted this morning. And again, if you guys haven't seen it, I'll have a link for it in the description box. But what you can see is his response right here. Okay, Harsh messaged Steve about the emails that me and him were getting. He didn't mention me, which is fine. I didn't want him to. I didn't even really want to give any of this power because I know that whenever you speak about things and speak on things, you give it power. So I wasn't even going to address it. I'm just living my life. But Steve also didn't have to respond. Steve can do whatever he wants to. I understand that he's a grieving father. He's trying to figure out if everything is going right. And now we have this on top of the house being demolished right after Christmas. Okay. And that news just leaking, or not leaking, but that news coming out as of yesterday. So I understand emotions are high and, I get it. Okay. I've been in all of those kinds of crazy situations to where it's just constant. Okay. Constant avalanche. All right. I understand that. But you didn't have to respond to Harsh, Steve. You didn't. So now that it's out there in black and white and you're now confirming that this conversation actually happened, which I never doubted that this conversation happened in the first place, I'm going to now question some things that you said, Steve. So here I go. Who is threatening y'all? What do you mean by from an early suspect? We were threatened by just one family. Now, see, I don't take that as Dylan or Bethany. I don't. It could be. I mean, because let's admit it, guys, it could be, especially since his next response is something about how Dylan and Bethany's families both have resources, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Most families do have resources. But what I am more concerned about is what would be the reasoning for one specific family to be threatening the Consalvases. And then he mentions that along with an early suspect. And as I mentioned, before Brian's arrest, there was no suspects. At least not that we knew of, right? They instantly cleared pretty much everyone that was around and in that house within 48 hours, 72 hours. Everyone was cleared. And the family was questioning that. Why were y'all cleared so soon? We don't know anything about these people. And they didn't. They don't know crap about Dylan and Bethany. And honestly, to this point, do they really know anything more than they did before? No, they're not talking to them. He makes it clear in this conversation, Dylan nor Bethany want anything to do with this case. They don't want to testify. They don't want to come in here. Now, don't you think if they really cared about true justice for their 4 friends that got, unalived on the exact same night, and they could make sure that the right guy got put in prison and got, put to death with the firing squad and blah, 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 don't you think they would take time out their little hectic, busy little college life schedule to show up and testify in court? What the hell they get them tattoos for? Sympathy points? I have problems with these girls, and I don't really care how people feel about it. I'm a mom of a teenage girl, and I know damn well when she's that age, she would not behave this way. So when it comes to the Consalvases being threatened and claiming that they support all of the victims of 11/22, meaning to them, that means Dylan and Bethany too, who's doing the threatening? And that is confirmed in the Facebook post. Look at it says right here. We have been threatened, but not by any of our girls' college friends. So you could literally eliminate every single person that these girls knew through college. And what does that leave? What does that leave left to be threatening the Consalves family? And was it just them, or were they threatening Maddie's family? Were they threatening the Chapins? Is that maybe why the Chapins are like, I don't want anything to do with this. We're just going to watch from afar and hope for the best, because that's basically what's happening. Did they threaten Xana's family, or was it just the Consalvases? And whenever he mentions an early suspect, I know that we've talked a lot about how it seems like the families only know what we know, right? Because it seems like a lot of stuff that they talk about is extremely misconstrued. And that's been one of the biggest issues here, trying to keep track of fact and fiction and rumor and opinion when it comes to what the families are telling us. We all know that that's true. I'm going to assume that that would also mean Jack, right? And most likely Jack S., hoodie guy, because that was a friend of the girls. And they've made it very clear, not by any of our girls' college friends. Okay, so that leaves what? Brian's family? I highly doubt Brian's family is threatening the Consalvases. That would be a horrible look, and I'm sure that we would have heard about that by now. And the fact that we haven't heard anything about it until now is, I think, the most intriguing part, because them being threatened wasn't made public. Now, all the other stuff about how, you guys remember I did a video on this. It was right after the Howard Bloom article, and there was a bunch of stuff Steve said in there, apparently, to other people that reported it back to Howard Bloom, and things that Howard Bloom found out as a journalist that Steve said did blah, 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 blah. And Steve came out and wanted to completely backtrack most of everything that Howard Bloom said. Well, then they very publicly posted the fact that messages were sent to them stating that someone was going to be construing a whole bunch of lies about Steve and spreading a bunch of crap everywhere and lying to Howard Bloom, and they wanted help finding that person, okay? That wasn't an early on situation. That was like a month and a half, 2 months ago situation, right? If that is that what he's talking about here? Because that's not technically a family. That's like some screen name on Facebook. Unless they found the culprit to that and it did link back to a family. But for it to not to be a friend of the girls from college, who does that leave? Strangers? People not involved in the case whatsoever? That's my biggest question here. And if the Consalvases are being threatened, again, are all of the families being threatened? Is that why there's just one family speaking out for technically all 4 victims, even though the Chapins are like basically washing their hands of it? All this did was give me more questions and bring me more concern about if the right person is in jail or not. Because like I said, if there was threats coming from the Kohberger side to the victims' families, yeah, I'm pretty positive that would have been out by now. That would definitely have been out by now, especially with as vindictive as some people involved in this kind of seem. I don't see why they would keep that quiet. And if it's something from family member to family member, that doesn't technically have a damn thing to do with the gag order. So yeah, that's confusing. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that little part because the rest of it, I'm not really trying to give a lot of power to. Like I said, I am not asking anything different than what thousands, if not millions of people across the planet are asking. I'm not being disrespectful to anything. I'm not coming out and trying to claim that, like I mentioned, that these girls were doing anything illegal for money. It just seemed like they were in college, getting their degrees and moving on with their lives. And I find it incredibly, disgustingly tragic that Kaylee was literally about to start her adventure as a woman on her own in Texas, nonetheless. We would have literally been fellow Texans if she didn't tragically die that night. I find that a really hard situation to deal with for the family, knowing that her technical childhood was over. She was graduating early the same way that I'm trying to graduate my daughter early from high school to get her started in her career earlier. Okay, there's a lot of things here that trigger me to be passionate and feel emotions about what's going on. So yeah, I might be asking questions, but that's because the only thing that matters here is Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan. Everyone else, they're just on the outside. They're just having to deal with it. But what matters are the lives that were cut short, the opportunities that were lost. That's all that matters. Okay? Okay. But that is it, you guys. If you liked this video, please do not forget to leave a like on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you are not already, and go check out my second channel. Have you guys seen Leave the World Behind on Netflix yet? It blew my freaking mind and made me want to stock up on some more canned goods and bottled water because, reality hit on that one. See y'all.